can set up these camera arrays, I believe, in that environment, and then lure sharks, the big sharks there with bait, and they'll swim among the cameras. We should be able to capture them in 3D. No one's ever done it before. I think we can do it now. The way I think we do it is you set up this array and you use 4K video, and just have it running, and then the shark just swims past it, and you can do it frame by frame. We haven't done it yet because that's going to take a lot of money, time, and expertise. But I want to do that for next campaign. That's a fantastic idea.
One more question? Last question?
Yeah.
After you get the data, do you spend a lot of time cleaning up the point cloud or cleaning up all the
Pretty much all our models, except the shark we did, because the way we did the shark is you do the top half, then you turn the shark over to the belly, and then you digitally integrate the two, and that's the way we're going to do sea turtles. But we're actually working, but I'd say that all the other models, we focus so much on photography, no cleanup at all.
So I was going to ask that about how do you get their stomachs to get them to expose their stomachs? So you turn the sharks over.
Yeah.
But do you have any other techniques like translucent, forward?
Yeah, actually, it's a great question. I have a student working on that right now.
Oh.
We're trying to crack that nut, because you notice that like the lizards and the frogs are on a substrate.
Yeah.
One thing I will notice, the substrate is a scale bar. But yeah, that's more complicated because as you're well aware, photogrammetry and photography, there's diffraction effects, lighting, it's very complicated. We think we figured it out.
Yeah.
So we're going to try it in the next month or so, like do a frog or a toad fully 3D. But it's not simple or easy.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. Thank you, Craig.
All right, one more clap for Duncan. All right, next up, we have a really awesome presenter from Qualcomm. His name is Nigel Williams. He's a senior software engineer, and he's demoing the Snapdragon tonight. So without further ado, if we can get Nigel Williams.
Thanks, Craig.
Hold on, stay there. Stay there.
Just gotta get out of the way a little bit. That's better. So I want to thank Duncan. That was really awesome. Thanks for coming out. I was actually in the Galapagos earlier this year, and I got to swim with white-tip sharks, and that was one of the best experiences of my life. It's one of the most docile creatures you can imagine. Like went in a cave with them, and there's like 5 of them around us. And I was only snorkeling, so I didn't have to go very deep. Those are the shallows. Can everyone hear me okay?
Pull a little closer.
A little louder? Okay.
Closer.
Sorry, I was just saying that I went to the Galapagos earlier this year. I swam with some white-tip sharks, and it was the greatest experience of my life. And I think what Duncan's doing with photogrammetry is very interesting because as a company, we're very interested in photogrammetry. It's the only way to bring truly immersive 3D models into a VR environment. All right, so my talk's going to be a little bit more technical, focused on virtual reality. So I work for Qualcomm. I'm a user remote driver engineer, and what that means is that I work on all the features that are used by mobile virtual reality headsets. So the way that the techniques that artists use, we have to basically produce that technique somehow. And that's what I do at my job. I'll go through in detail about some of those techniques that we use. Specifically, I work on the Adreno GPU core graphics team. And that's actually just outside of Boston, Foxborough. Our main office is in San Diego. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Chargers, but San Diego, the Qualcomm Stadium. So yeah, a lot of people don't know about Qualcomm because we don't really promote our products inside our devices like Intel does. They have a really good marketing campaign. But we're more focused on a mobile environment, and we're more focused on interacting with all different types of clients. And instead of doing our own fabrication, we basically sell our technology to other people. It eventually worked. So what the Snapdragon, what particularly what I mean by Snapdragon, that's our CPU, that's our heterogeneous system on chip, and that's a CPU, GPU, DSP. What these are, like, so CPU is everything we're familiar with. It's the main processing unit of the computer. The GPU is a graphics processing unit. And then we have an image processing unit. And then we have a digital processing, a signal processing unit. And then we have a ton of other units in our hardware that most people aren't really aware of. And so I'm here tonight to kind of describe the different the different aspects of hardware that we have in our device, in our system on chip, and for how you can leverage this technology to accelerate your applications. And also kind of to talk a lot more about a specific device that we've been working on. So mainly we've been in the Gear VR for a while, and the Google Daydream devices that also use our Snapdragon CPU. Now, the issue I find with both of these, I actually noticed somebody walking around today with a Google View. Love to check that out later. So that's using the Pixel is using our 821 CPU unit, which is really exciting. I was really happy for us to get integrated in that device. The main issue with them is that you have to have a separate phone. And it's nice you already own a phone, but if you want the new device, then you have to buy the new phone for it. And what we've done is that we've released a reference design, because the issue is that with consumer devices, you have so many different stages of development, and it takes a long time to incorporate technology that exists today in a consumer device. So we really want to push the standards and allow them to innovate further so that it makes it easier for our partners like Google, like Samsung, to integrate our technology that we're developing for them. So there's a few news articles that were released that you guys can go and check out. All right, so the main components of our chip, I kind of referenced it already. So the main thing is our Cryo CPU, and we also have our GPU, and that's what I work on. I work on the Adreno GPU, and specifically the Muse remote driver. So I'm the one that interfaces with the API that the applications use. Applications will use Unity or some kind of engine that sits on top of the standardized API, which is OpenGLES or Vulkan or something like that. And then you can also, but there's so much more to our system on chip than just the CPU and GPU. There's also the modem, which is kind of our bread and butter. It's something that Qualcomm is well known for. And that's kind of what established us in the mobile space. I won't go into any details about that because I don't want to get in terms of competition with other companies. But our dominance comes from our modem, and we have some amazing people working in modem and doing some amazing things. And the main thing that most people don't know about is the hexagon DSP. And so, for example, image processing, so like photogrammetry. You know, the DSP is something that can be really utilized for photogrammetry to accelerate the operation. So like, the hard part about going to mobile is that you have a lot less horsepower and a lot less power. You have a much more stringent power limitation. So what you need to do, but what you don't realize as well, is that the hardware is capable of so much more, especially using something like a DSP, which is very low power. It's very power efficient. And it's also very acceleration for specific applications like image processing. It's more signal processing, so images are actually signals. Like, it's kind of like hard to think about it in that way, but it's something that you can use to leverage and accelerate your applications by using that hardware. And then we also have this other thing, and it's kind of strange to talk about it as an image processor, because we actually have something separate to that. We actually have an image processor, or Qualcomm Spectra image processor, which you can actually leverage as well. And the way to take advantage of all this hardware that's in our devices is by using our SDKs. And the main thing about our devices is that they're extremely performant and also unbelievably power efficient. So our modem is our main point of contention in terms of why we become dominant in the market. The other thing is our power efficiency. And yet we haven't been able to sacrifice performance for that. So now we've designed this reference design for virtual reality, and it's a standalone unit. And what I mean by that is that the Google View and the Gear VR, they have a phone that slips in, where this has everything built into the unit. And so you just have to slip on the device, and then you can enter VR. The main difference about this is that this actually has two camera sensors on the front of the device. You have a camera sensor on your phone, but it's not leveraged currently. Like, I know the Gear VR actually covers the front face of your camera, so you can't actually use it unless you take the front cover off. It also has like a bunch of other motion tracking features. Now, the main thing is that it uses the accelerometer. So the Gear VR uses like your gyroscopes. And so you can also use accelerometer to get your position data, but the problem is that you have too much error from that. And so then you can use the camera sensors to correct the position. And that you are in the physical world. So you can move around and actually be in an accurate position in the physical world and also be in that same position in the virtual world. And then you can map it to one-to-one. Another aspect of this that will be integrated in this device that's already in the hardware are eye tracking. And I'll go into a little bit more of that later about why that's so important. Sorry. Oh, that was wrong. It was on the yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly over the technical details. I'm not going to go into much. If anybody has any questions about this, come to me afterwards, and especially while people are demoing the unit, just feel free to come on the side and talk to me about any of this. So what I was saying is that we're both very performant and power efficient, and that's because we're tile rendered. And currently only mobile chips are tile renderers. And what I mean by that is that we're subdividing the screen into small components. Because like you have this massive screen and you only have a small amount of memory. So you subdivide the screen into small sections and you process them individually. And that makes us very performant and power efficient. And I'm not going to go into details about that, but the idea is that you do everything on chip. You don't ever go out to memory. So everything's done on chip, and so then it's very low latency, it's very quick, it's very accelerated, it's also very power efficient because the way you use power in a mobile phone or a computer in general is by drawing the bus. So as soon as you power up the bus, draw something across it like memory, then you're going to just drain your power. And the idea is that you have all your color buffers, your depth buffers, your stencil buffers in tile memory, and it's on chip. And now that's the difference between desktop GPUs is that previously they weren't this tiled architecture, but there are reasons to believe this is the direction that even desktop systems are going towards. That's been proven. So I'm not going to go into details about some other technical aspects of this. I'm just going to continue on. But if anybody has any questions afterwards, just please ask me. So we have an online community here at Qualcomm Developer Network. And we're a hardware company. And we just want to get some amazing content generated for our hardware. And we're providing an SDK available. We have several different SDKs. Particularly, we have the Snapdragon SDK that's for facial processing recognition and also doing image processing and stuff like that. And then we also have our Adreno GPU SDK, and that has a ton of samples on like how to do things. If you really want to accelerate things and want things to run smoothly on mobile, because using an engine, you're limited. It's another layer of abstraction. So it limits you to a certain degree because one, you need to integrate the new technology into the engine, so it takes a little bit longer for that. There's overhead from using an engine itself, if you really need to like bleed the edge and really get pure performance, then you'll need to implement, instead of using Unity, you'll need to implement using OpenGL. And Unity does provide the ability to write your own modules in OpenGL. And particularly OpenGL, yes. And if you look at our Adreno GPU SDK, it'll give you examples about how to do that. Okay, so the main thing I wanted to come and talk about today is our VR SDK. And what I want to do is encourage you to go and check it out. It isn't released today, but it'll be very soon. I know everybody hates that word soon. I can't tell you when it's going to be released, except for it's going to be released very soon. And it's sooner than most other people. It's sooner than what most other people would prefer when they use that word. So very soon we'll have this VR SDK available for you to access, and you can go on our website and download it. And the key aspect about this, and why I'm here, is that the reason you'll want to use our SDK is that you'll get much earlier access to our hardware features that we've implemented. And not just hardware features, like I work on a software driver, so there's a lot of software components to it as well. But they're all very low level, And what's nice about this VR SDK is that it abstracts everything for you. It really makes things simplified. So it takes the complexity of implementing things, in a low-level language like OpenGL, and it gives you intrinsic functions. And by intrinsic, I just mean that everything's kind of hidden behind a function. If you call a function, it does everything for you. And things like foveated rendering and late latching and the 6DOF demo that I'm presenting today are very easily integrated into your application using our SDK. I can't go into details about who's going to adopt our SDK, but initially it's only going to be available on our reference design. But the hope is that it becomes universal. The key difference about, is everybody wants to use Unity and only develop for Oculus or Daydream, and that's an issue for us because they're all our clients, and VR needs to be a more open environment, and that's kind of our focus with our VR SDK. So if you really want to leverage our hardware and understand what are the bottlenecks of your application, then you can use our Snapdragon Profiler. And what's nice about this, it kind of breaks it down into the processing units. So you can actually break it down and look at the individual components that are taking a ton of time and actually figure out why the application is so slow. We were at the MIT hackathon a few weeks ago, and there were a few applications that didn't really run well in a mobile environment. And there's always some kind of like a GPU bubble or some kind of a bottleneck that's really slowing things down. And sometimes it can be really something simple that's kind of like providing this hiccup in terms of your application. And you can use this profiler to really determine and to use it as kind of a tool to dig down and figure out exactly what's going on with the application. So the main thing I was going to talk about today is just a few of the features that we have. Sorry. I'm just going to stand right here. So these extensions are not specific to virtuality. These are all extensions that you can use in any application to accelerate things. And if you're doing a mobile application, you should be using all of these extensions if you're doing a native application. And they're very simple things like validating your frame buffer. And by that, all it is that you're taking the contents of the frame buffer and deciding to throw it away if you don't need it. Because you don't want to be drawing stuff across the bus, which is going to use power and it's going to increase latency. You want to do compressed textures, so there's a very specific format that's very mobile first, and that's ASTC. There's also a lot of validations done that's in OpenGL, and that's why things are moving towards more of this low-level, explicit API called Vulkan. And you can remove all that validation. As soon as you know your application runs correctly on our hardware, you can remove all the validation by using this Nowhere extension. And I'm not going into the details of the multi-sample render texture, but it's very similar to the validate frame buffer extension. It's pretty much the same thing. Where this is invalidating individual frame buffer, this is kind of making sure that everything stays on the GPU. You don't ever want to go off chip. You want to stay on the GPU and to have extreme performance that way. All right, so now to focus more on the virtual reality extensions. So I don't know how many people are familiar with the chromatic aberration, but it's the idea that light refracts. Because the light goes through a lens, it actually refracts. And because you have dispersion, so your light will split in different channels. It's the same way that light goes through a prism, and you end up with a rainbow. It's the same concept. And when the light goes through the lenses that's being displayed from screen, you get a separation of colors. And so what you can do is just shift the color channels that you're rendering for each pixel if you know the exact way that the light's going to refract. And so you can do that using this extension, which gives you a single channel, and to be able to render using individual channels. And this is a big one called multi-view. And so with this one, you're just you have to, for stereoscopic vision, to get depth perception, you need to send a command buffer to your GPU, and you don't want to replicate the command buffer because it's redundant, and so or to send 2 command buffers. And so the idea of this is you use this extension to send 1 command buffer, and it'll just do some patching, and you'll end up having 2 odd views rendered, basically where it's slightly different with a different view angle for each eye. So this is single buffering. So this is one of the ones that I worked on. And I'm sure some of you have heard about this motion to photon. And we're trying to minimize it. For like VR, it needs to be less than 20 milliseconds. For AR, it has to be less than 5 milliseconds. So it's very important for things to be very low latency. And that's what I was talking about, keeping things on chip. And the idea of single buffering is that you're rendering directly to the display. But it's kind of like the dark ages of OpenGL, and that that's what applications did 20 years ago. And we started double buffering so that you wouldn't see tearing, so the screen wouldn't tear when you render 1 frame to the next frame. And so we're kind of going back towards that because it's extremely low latency. And by latency, if you're not really sure what I mean by that, I mean it's like if I take a ball, I throw it over there, it's the length of time that it takes for the ball to go from here to there. And that's really important on a GPU, especially in terms of all the units it has to go through from the point at which you move your head to the point at which that pixel is rendered on screen. And this context priority extension, the reason I really want to emphasize this is because that we were the first company to be truly to implement hardware preemption. And the reason that's important is because on your systems you have so many applications running, and you don't want them to take priority over a VR application. Your VR application should be the highest priority, specifically your asynchronous time warp. I'm not going to go into details about the asynchronous time warp. That's been covered in other VR events. But the idea is just that you move your head and you get a new frame, and all the objects in the space will be in the same position, but at least you'll have a new frame rendered properly, and you won't get judder from 1 frame to the next. There's a new concept called space warp as well, and that's the idea of interpolating the position of objects in your space as well. So when you move your head, you're getting a new frame that's rendered correctly, but then you're also getting an extrapolation of the position of those objects. And so this is the main point we're here tonight is to describe is the inside-out motion tracking. And what I mean by inside-out versus outside-in is that the the Vive and the Oculus Rift are doing outside-in tracking. So they're doing cameras to detect your location in space. And the problem with that is that you really need, you have an issue of occlusion. So if you have 2 people within that space and one person's occluding that camera, you can't accurately detect the location of their position. So with a camera, you are essentially having a million sensors within your space because you're doing it from inside out. And so as long as your device, our device particularly, I can't go into the details of it, but to simplify things, it's just doing feature tracking. So it's basically deciding where objects are in space, where that table is, where this floor is, and it's correcting the position. And the technical details about it is just that if you use an accelerometer, which is one of the IMU units in your device, and by IMU I mean inertial measurement unit. And you can have manometers, magnetometers, which are basically detecting the magnetosphere in your area, but that suffers from radio frequency noise. And you can also have your accelerometer and your gyroscopes, which give you your relative or your rotational position. And we want the actual translational position, because we want you to be able to move around this environment and not be restricted. And so because of when you have to filter out gravity, so if you have a phone, gravity's constantly pulling on that object. And so even if it's still flat on a table, gravity is still pulling on that. And it's pulling on this inertial measurement unit, this accelerometer. And you have to filter that out, and you use a lower approximation for it, and you get truncation error. And the same thing with the double integration for position. All I mean is that you have to go from acceleration to velocity to position. And you have to approximate that. And you get a ton of error from that, and it produces drift. So you're in an environment, and you all of a sudden start drifting through space. And that's going to make people sick, and that's not what we're after. So yeah, I'm just here to kind of promote our developer network and really want people to start generating amazing content for our hardware. And whether or not you're doing something like photogrammetry or medicine or any kind of application like storytelling or Like I know a lot of people are doing therapy applications. One of the best I've seen is, or one of the most interesting was a demo doing, it's helping kids with autism. And it was an amazing demo. The guys came here and they gamified autism. And the idea is that you were rewarded for, this is in AR, in Google Glass, and you're rewarded for maintaining eye contact. And there's so many amazing content out there. And if you guys go out and look at all the content that was generated at the MIT hackathon a few weeks ago, it was really incredible. There's some people did phantom limb pain, and I can't even go through all the details of them. But there's so many things that are capable, that our hardware is capable of. And I want you to understand that our mobile devices are converging on the power of desktop units. They'll always have unlimited draw power, but the problem with that is that I think if you're just trying to throw power at something, you're not going to produce a creative problem. So certain limitations allow you to think a little bit creatively. And I just want to know that you realize that you're not as limited as you might think on our mobile hardware. It's capable of so much more, especially if you take advantage of all the heterogeneous processing units. By heterogeneous, I mean that you can just have an application that runs on all the processing units and is accelerated extremely well. So yeah, big problem I mentioned earlier is that a lot of people just don't know about the innovation that we're doing at Qualcomm. And we just really want to push the envelope and help you create amazing content. So, and that's why I'm here, to show you what our hardware is capable of and to tell you about what's coming in the future. And also to promote people to go out and go onto our developer network and look at the SDKs that are available and what they're capable of. And just to encourage you to continue to make amazing content and know what you're capable of. And don't be limited. Don't think you're limited by the hardware that you're presented with, because it's capable of so much more if I can help you understand how to leverage it. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thank you, Nigel.
Craig, I got a question.
Yes.
Actually, it's not a question. I just wanted to say for people who are here for the first time that Nigel is not just the guy from Qualcomm. Nigel has been a member of Boston VR for a long, long time, for years, and he's come out to every single meetup, and we knew for years that he was working on something really, really cool, but he could never show it in public. And now it is front and center at Boston VR Meetup. That's the great news. The bad news is that Nigel is about to pull a reverse Brexit and move to the United Kingdom. So for those of you that have never met him, for those of you that have known him for years, tonight is your chance to buy him a beer and thank him for all his support of Boston VR over the years.
So we'll go ahead and give Nigel a few minutes for questions. So raise your hands.
Yeah. So you showed the chip in phone. So is Qualcomm chip something that's across board in some phones, or?
Yeah. So
just talking about like the.
For the iPhone, it only has a modem in it, but most Android devices in North America have our chip, our full system on chip. So the only thing that will separate out is our modem. So some devices just have a modem, and like the iPhone just has a modem, but Samsung, Google, Sony, HTC, LG, Motorola, they all use our chip in North America. Does that answer your question?
And then, so the development you were talking about would be on phones, or exclusively on the device?
No, it would definitely be on the device that we're making, but also on all the phones that are out there for Gear VR, for Daydream, and anything that comes out in the future as well.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
I think at the hackathon, the device you were showing there only had a single camera, right?
Yeah.
Now you have two cameras, and I gotta say, I was really impressed with the single camera tracking.
Yeah.
Can you quantify how much better it is with two cameras?
Well, it's still using one camera, and but it's actually significantly better than the previous one. But that's more on the application design aspect in terms of making things better and making things more accurate. Because there was a lot of judder with that old. I still have that other prototype here, but I was hoping to get both of them working so that we could streamline the demos. But currently it's only one. But the idea is that you may not want, you'll want to, you will want to do, processing dual cameras, but what if you want to do gesture tracking as well? or something like that. So there's so much that I would say yes, that will be much more accurate. We'll be able to do full scene reconstruction, whereas we're just doing feature tracking. So instead of like just tracking floors and surfaces, do position correction. We can do full scene reconstruction and then integrate that into your scene in your virtual reality.
So how can we get one?
So I mentioned soon, and I'll just keep saying soon, and it's a lot sooner than when most people say that.
Is that where it's going to have like a pre-order phase?
We're not selling it, but we're actually, if you have like, if you're working on something, it's going to be like an application process, and so then you can just contact us, and then we're going to be, like personally, we're going to try and give away a few locally, give a few out locally, and they'll just be starting to be distributed extremely soon.
Will you share your slides with us?
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I'll make sure, Craig, you want to put them online so that people have access to them?
Yeah, we can do that.
Sure. Okay, so
Contact me afterwards and we'll work it out.
yeah, and by the way, like I'm going to be giving demos, so it's going to be pretty rad just trying to do all the demos. My cards are near where the gate is, where this little kind of square there. And also leave your card on the table so I can take it and if it's try and get a chance to introduce yourself to me, like Jeff said. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around for. My wife and I are planning to move to either Europe or the UK. We haven't quite decided yet. Okay. Any more questions before I hang up?
One more round of applause for Nigel.